Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Stoney.
Hello.
And Jason.
Hello, everyone.
So,
wow, we have a guest today.
We have a very special guest.
Yes,
a
we
very
do.
special guest. Unfortunately, we can't call him the lovely and talented like we do Miranda.
I mean, we can.
I think Miranda likes that.
Oh, she thought it was funny. She thought it was funny.
Right.
This is Mr. Avery.
Hello.
Mr. Avery works with me, actually.
Fun.
Unfortunately.
And wow.
I see how it is.
I've wanted to get you two together about the music and the technology thing, Ian, because y'all are both very fascinating when it comes to talking about both music and technology. And this is actually going to be a pretty good episode. But first, as with all things in the Retrospect podcast, all our new guests get to come in and try hopefully their first taste of poo-poo coffee, Kopi Luwak.
What do you think?
Here we go.
I mean, it is actually very, very, very good. I was, if you would have told me that it was made with poo-poo, I would have absolutely no clue.
well, again, it's not made with it.
And you like coffee. You're
Yes.
a coffee drinker. So
Love
how does
coffee.
this stack up against coffee for you?
It's pretty good. I would say your normal average coffee is like a solid 5 out of 10. I would say this is a solid 8.5, 9.
Oh, wow.
Really?
That
Okay.
seems to be a common
Very
thread
good.
there.
Very
Awesome.
Well,
So would you have it again?
Absolutely.
Did you turn your nose up at it and think about it? Did you wince a little bit? Wait, poo-poo coffee?
No,
Well,
I'm someone. I'll try anything once.
Because you've heard us talk about it on the podcast before.
So maybe y'all can help me buy the next batch.
It's all yes, you're
I'm
right.
down for it.
It's all about expectation. The fact that he sets it up so hard for he really hammers home the whole poo-poo aspect of it. I mean, there's a lot more at play here. There's really great beans, and yes, even though they're sourced and ready.
And you know what? It's funny you said that. It is really good beans.
Right.
And the enzyme has to do something, but it doesn't really get to it's just really a good cup of coffee. And it's surprising.
Right.
And you go, wow, I was not expecting that.
It's the way you package it. You make it
I
feel
know.
like I grabbed some fresh turds and just really made it into a cup of coffee. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, wow, this is really surprisingly good. It's like, well, no, there's real coffee beans there. It's not, anyways. So
I'm waiting to find somebody to drink it. I'm gonna look at their teeth and go, hey, you got a little piece of poo-poo stuck in your teeth.
Oh no, nobody ever tried.
Well, when I hear that, I'm glad I bought it.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Seems
Really
to be a going thing. So far, everybody's liked it, including Mr.
I want to come
Avery
back
here.
just
Yeah.
for another cup of coffee.
Oh,
There you
we
go.
There we go. All righty.
Perfect.
Wow. Do you call it housekeeping? We
I think
got
that's
just a
the
small bit of housekeeping
right.
here.
I think
Jason-
that's the technical term
Jason received
behind the curtain.
It looked like a 4-page email from a wonderful listener who has something to say about our episode on America's blood economy.
Yeah, I had a feeling this episode would.
That was our previous episode,
Yeah,
right?
the
Right.
episode we did on plasma. I had a feeling that would probably elicit some responses. And
I've heard
and
from some
it's-
people, and
it's kind of one of those topics that I think some people a little shame involved with it. There's somewhat of a stigma attached with it.
Right.
But
we discussed a lot of that in that episode. A little
well,
bit.
Yeah.
we're not journalists.
We're not.
We kind of talk about, but I almost felt like a journalist in that episode doing the research and finding the numbers and the truth and all of the realism behind that economy and how it impacts people's lives.
It does. It's an industry that I still believe preys upon people in somewhat semi-difficult conditions.
Sure.
Mhm.
And it's made billions of dollars doing it. And
Right.
I said there's nothing wrong with giving plasma. I think it's a noble endeavor because they do derive cures from it.
Sure.
So
And treatments. And
yeah,
you have a letter.
and I do, and I'd like to read this. This was was sent to me by one of our listeners, and then I think it's very interesting. And I will as follows. I thought my comment would be too long to post on your Facebook page, but I'd like to respond to your podcast about plasma. As you know, I've been giving plasma for about a year and a half. I do it not because I need the money, but because the extra money does help fund runs and travel expenses for me. I would compare it to a second job rather than a payday loan. A payday loan is money you must pay back at an astronomical interest rate. Your money is put on a debit card where you can purchase items from or transfer to your bank or cash out. You would be surprised at the professional people that give plasma. The stigma of the types of people that give plasma is incorrect. The walks of life there are very broad. You can only give plasma twice in a 7-day period. And for returning donors, you make only around $500 a month, not $1,000. Most visits I can be in and out of in an hour. Worst case has been 2.5 hours. This is something I can do at my own convenience and is tax-free. The best side gig someone can have with the economy the way it is now. Weekly compensation is usually between $110 to $130 a week, with the second visit paying more. At every visit, you must answer a series of questions. Afterwards, they will check your blood pressure for bruises, your temperature, pulse, iron, and protein. If any of these things are out of range, you cannot give, and you try again the next day. Wow. Every 14 to 16 weeks, they do an SPE, a serum protein electrophoresis. I'm probably mispronouncing it, test. This examines specific proteins in your globulins. If any of your proteins come back high or low, you must wait about a week and retake this test. You are not allowed to give again till your levels are in range. I never passed this test the first time, and usually takes me 2 times to pass. This allows my body to take the break it obviously needs. I work out a good bit, and this will also affect my proteins. During your donation, they collect whole blood from you. The amount is determined by your weight and other factors. Your plasma is separated from your blood, and the remaining blood is returned to your body. Your blood cells, red and white, and platelets are returned to your body too. You are also given saline after the plasma is taken to help maintain circulation. Mm-hmm. A staff member is always monitoring you throughout the process to make sure you are safe and comfortable. Plasma regenerates quickly. Without proper hydration, your blood volume returns to normal within 48 hours. I believe one of the reasons we are paid for plasma is because of the amount that is needed to help one person. The process after they take the plasma takes a while too. Plasma is not used immediately like blood is. Within 30 minutes of giving plasma, samples are drawn and frozen on site.
Wow.
Once test results come in, all approved plasma is transported to a warehouse facility where they are held for a minimum of 60 days to confirm the donor's health and the safety of the plasma. It takes up to 12 months from the donation to when the product is available for patients. Below is how much plasma is needed to treat a person with certain illnesses. 465 plasma donations will treat someone with chronic inflammatory demyelinating for 1 year. Well, something else probably I mispronounced. 1,200 plasma donations will treat someone with hemophilia for 1 year.
Wow.
And 130 plasma donations will treat one person with primary immunodeficiency for 1 year. So I thought this was good feedback. I like hearing. I love hearing this kind of stuff. It hasn't changed my mind of what I think the plasma industry preys on people, but we still need people to do it.
Right. Sure,
I'm just of the opinion that I believe that you should be paid a lot more, considering the amount of profits that they're raking in.
Yes,
and that's my problem with it.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, we thank whoever wrote this in. We appreciate you taking the time. You obviously put a lot of thought and effort into this, and that's one of the things we like about the Retrospect podcast is as we're growing, we're starting to get a lot of feedback, and that means we're reaching people and we're resonating with people, and they are appreciating what we're doing because it also gives them a voice to speak out. This person has obviously heard of the stigma of plasma donation or selling plasma, and they didn't appreciate the stigma behind it. And so we thank you for speaking out.
Yeah, thank you so much. And please, for all our listeners out there, please give us feedback on these topics. I mean, we'd love to hear that.
Right.
Speaking of topics.
Uh-oh. Whenever you preface it like that, it always makes me nervous.
Right? It does, doesn't it? No, I don't. I think we're going to be all right. This one is kind of in your ball court there, Mr. Ian Wolf and Mr. Avery. I think Jason will have a good bit to put into it, but today's topic is...
He's our fact checker. For
he's our fact checker?
He brought notes. And I was like,
yeah. Well, hey, you know,
I didn't know.
It kind of depends on what I have, you know, the direction of the show.
I didn't know that I was going to be tested today. I see how it is.
Well, the topic for today is music.
What a great topic.
Broad topic.
Well, it's very broad. Ian is our resident musician. And Mr. Avery, you are just one of the most knowledgeable people about a couple of things, and music being one of them. And I've appreciated our conversations, so I thought this would be a good one for you to kind of, you know, break your cherry in the podcast world and
don't say
get
it like
in
that.
here. And,
I've never heard that before.
Okay.
Yeah,
And get in here and get on the podcast and join us. Because you do listen, and I appreciate you listening. And here you go.
Appreciate you welcoming me for being here.
Absolutely. All right, Ian.
So I guess what the listeners are being introduced to Avery about the same time that I am. I don't know. So I guess what do you do in in the realm of like music, or because I guess that's what the topic of today's podcast is, or I guess what is.
So I wouldn't say I'm not a musician or anything, but I do some sound work when I do video editing, so that's what I mostly do. So
right.
matching sound to video, but and of course listen. So that's pretty much it, though. It's really video editing with sound editing and splicing them together and trying to make something interesting.
Fun.
You've done a couple hype videos?
Yeah, I've done a couple of hype videos. One for school, one for a group of friends, and I've had to do trailers, like a game trailer I got to do the day. So yeah, that usually involves doing that.
Fun.
Okay.
That's a little peek behind the curtain. That's my day job is doing that. Yes. So I work in Premiere Pro.
Me too.
All day, every day. That and Photoshop are the two things that I think I probably reside in the most. But yeah, so that's. I mean, I get what you're talking about in that regard. But I guess is there anything in particular that we want to talk about?
Well,
right off the get go when it comes to music,
I'm gonna lead off, and maybe this will kind of drive us and kind of lead us down, whatever road it leads us down.
Right.
I'm gonna energy, frequency, and vibrations.
Oh gosh, here we go.
Now that kind of harkens back to another episode. That's Nikola Tesla.
Right.
And if one should desire to know whether a kingdom is well governed, if its morals are good or bad, the quality of its music will furnish the answer.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Confucius.
Okay. Wow.
So,
what an interesting...
That might have to be the title of the podcast.
Where does that lead us?
Oh, man. That's, I'm telling you, man, music is such an emotional thing. I feel like inherently that's I think at the core foundation of what like music is eliciting emotion, I think, out of people more than anything else.
You find that especially like in a movie soundtrack or something, when you want to generate, just the acting is okay, but you want to generate something, you pop the right track in there.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll have people bawling or laughing. And
Right.
Yeah, anytime someone talks about what kind of music they like, they're always like, well, it depends what kind of mood I'm in.
Sure.
So
right, that is a...
How about that? What's everybody's favorite music? Avery, what's your favorite music?
Probably R&B and alternative rock.
Okay. Jason?
It kind of jumps all over the board. I do like classical music.
Yeah.
I do like rock. I mean, I'm not going, I was banging heads during the 80s like every other person was. Some country, I do. I like that. But once again, a lot of it depends on mood.
Right.
If I'm driving down the road in the car, it's like, okay, I find myself in a certain mood to play rock music.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm at home, I find myself more leaning toward classical or meditative type music.
Interesting.
Well, I have a question. Okay, you said when you're driving you like to play rock music, but isn't there a federal law or something that says when you're driving and you're playing AC/DC, the speed limit's 15 miles more than the posted limit is? I mean, isn't that correct?
Definitely.
I'm sort of like Sammy Hagar and
Okay,
can't drive 55.
if you're listening to this, don't you get to add a couple of miles an hour to the speed limit?
Of course you do.
Uh-huh.
Of course you do.
I thought I heard that somewhere.
You know, I don't know. I believe music has a hidden power to affect our minds, our bodies, our thoughts, and our society.
We'll get.
I agree. Well, let's get to that. I want to get to Ian's
say,
favorite.
We'll get to the deep psychological stuff later because I have some really far out there.
Okay.
Some really like bruh kind of like things that we'll get to later. Trust me.
What's your favorite, Ian? What kind of music do you like?
So I my dad was a big fan of like all the 80s rock,
the hair bands,
all that kind of stuff.
That's
so
right.
like, but that was not my favorite though. So like that may have been in my childhood, but I grew up with like early 2000s rock, alternative rock, and like what now has kind of produced into this new like metalcore genre that's like a huge swath of like my music taste is this like genre of new rock, and I especially now have like really been falling in love as a bass player. I've been falling in love with this new wave of like bass players in rock bands being like modern rock bands now being really at the forefront, and
because it used to be the guitar or the drums, and now other instruments are kind of popping up and being a little bit more prevalent.
Or I think it's just more that it's really having their time to shine. But anyways, that's that. If we're talking, if there's one genre, that's what it is. It's probably all versions of new rock. The only genres that I don't think that I really mesh with, and that's just a personality, like a personal taste, is a lot of like rap music and country music. Those are the two genres that I've like tried my best, and I can see the artistry in it, and I see the work that's put into it, and I can commend the artist for it, but it
doesn't resonate with you.
Doesn't resonate with me at all.
Okay.
In fact, it kind of makes me a little cringe. I'm like, I don't like it. But that's just, again, so it's all just personal stuff, and I think it's because of my upbringing and like again whom I'm.
But that's why there's so much music. I read an article that there's 200 and something different styles of music across the world. And in a way, that's kind of like religion. There's so many religions because not everything fits everybody. Not everybody's going to like the same music. And if they did, this would be a really boring world.
Yeah.
So,
there's so many subgenres of each music, like rock. You know, you have like pop rock, alternative rock, classic rock,
grunge
rock,
Right.
everything.
Well, even like newer versions of just like electronic music is the same way. I feel like it was every year there's a new. Everyone's taking their idea of this like electronic genre and like making it their own and making this new subgenre of like a sound or whatever. I think that's just how music is. It evolves and it changes and sometimes it really resonates with people and sometimes people really hate it. And there's a lot of stuff that I've listened to that I've had friends of mine that's like, I can't listen to it. I'm like, I totally understand where you're coming from. But for me, this makes me feel good.
Okay. So, wow. That's cool. That's really neat.
Yeah, I've resisted. I remember when the hard rock genre was kind of starting to get replaced with a grunge rock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, Kurt Cobain and the
90s, yeah.
And I was like, I can't believe this is happening. You know, it's just what's happening, you know, but it's... it's the nature of music, and as you know, as time goes on, people change. And
but I agree with you. But there's also that's why I think I've loved the idea of Spotify and like music streaming as a whole, because of the idea that I have been able to find more music that really fits my taste. Like people that are releasing music now that is like really scratching that itch for me. So, like, yes, music evolves and things change, and it may seem like the bigger picture, like, for me at least, music as a whole is shifting in this direction, and I don't like that because it's not my favorite kind of sound. But like, even though that's like where all the eyes are, that doesn't mean there's not this like group of people that are doing what they love and making some really great stuff with it, at least in my kind of avenues. Like I said, in the kind of different rock genres that I'm listening to. And even like experimental, like jazz fusion stuff, like some really interesting stuff that I like to listen to that people probably would like listen to and go, I don't really care for that. And like, that's fine. But like for me, this is really like, it's hitting a spot for me. Like there's a core idea of this is there is a bunch of kind of like rock bands, and they have a saxophone player. And even though far better musicians than me may listen to a saxophone and not like it because they think it's probably cliche or overused or whatever it may be, I like a nice saxophone. I think it's a very expressive instrument, and I love it very much. And I love the sound of it, and I think in jazz specifically, it just has its spot, and I just think it's really fun.
See, that was one of my early roots.
Yeah,
with music was living in the French Quarter. I was very lucky, actually, in the late 70s and very early 80s to actually make it to Studio 54 before that, the complete disco collapse.
Right.
But living in the French Quarter in the 80s and the 90s, I got to sit in these places. Jazz came from New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
That's other people try to claim jazz. You can't have it.
I've heard Memphis also tries to make that claim.
No, it came from New Orleans, and
I think it's the same.
Maybe
sort
I'm
of thing.
thinking of blues.
And blues is a big thing.
Yeah,
it's I feel like it really. They may have. I think that New Orleans and probably Memphis as well has claim to like their version of it, but like I feel like jazz as a whole has been.
Jazz is New Orleans, and
easily.
to be able to go in these clubs and listen to Pink Fountain and some of these other amazing, it was just amazing. You could sit there with your friends and smoke a cigar and listen to music and actually just really and appreciate, like you said, the music. I can't play a CD without getting static on it. But to be able to watch these people do what they do and love what they do and perform the way they do was just amazing. That was a wonderful time of my life. And I'll never forget those nights, Fridays and Saturdays, sitting in there in the clubs, listening to pure jazz and blues, and it was just amazing.
To kind of round out what I was talking about, I didn't realize that I wanted or that I needed a saxophone in like a rock band until I heard one or two groups that have been doing it, and it's kind of becoming a little more popular in some way. And the execution is really well done, in my personal opinion, and I've really been falling in love with it. And I was like, and it's things like that of like, I never would have thought about that, but somebody out there, a group got together and like decided to make that decision. And of course has this really great band that makes great music. And
think about the early 60s and 70s, the rock bands that had a flute.
Oh yeah.
Where'd that come from? And then somebody puts in a sax, like you said.
Right.
It's just.
What was, I'm trying right now, I'm thinking, what was the rock group that sang Welcome to the Jungle?
Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when they came out with November Rain.
Mm-hmm.
That video, if I recall, was in conjunction with an orchestra.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have always liked that combination. I think it brings a different sound to typically a genre that's kind of really harsh. It's kind of, there's a powerful energy with it. So I've always liked that blending of the two. I think that's a great combination.
There's nothing I have realized personally from being in the music industry in some capacities that there is nothing like being able to get more people involved that are good at what they do. Like if you're able to get like a full choir or you're able to get like a full orchestra of people that are like really good, it can make a track sound astronomically like bigger. There are rock songs that I've listened to. There's a composer that I listened to that did like a cover of Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles, and he has a full orchestra and a full choir, and he is like the lead singer on the track, but then it swells into just this huge orchestra sound, and it's amazing, and it makes me feel every time I've ever been in a group, or I've ever been in like an audience of like a choir being done, I have felt such strong emotions in those moments. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just because of the type of person that I am or what's going on, but just being able to hear a full crowd, like a full group of people that are able like to execute like a really well done like choir of like, whatever it may be.
Is it the frequency or the wavelength when you have that many people speaking? And I think we're going to get into the frequency and wavelength thing in a little bit. But when you have a choir and they're all singing in the tone that they're supposed to, you can feel that. And we use that word resonate a lot on the retro. You can feel that resonate through your chest.
I think it may, for me, if I'm going to sit here and be analytical about myself, I think it may, not only is it just the sound, but I think it may also be the fact that I know the work that it takes to be a musician in a group and to like play well under pressure. And so to have like that many people be able to execute like something melodically interesting or even like musically good is impressive. I think that's what it more so maybe.
Yeah, you can appreciate it more.
Because I think I feel the same way. I've been in some like pretty big churches that have like pipe organs, like those big, huge ass pipe organs, and I think I'm just in awe of the fact that you can make an instrument out of a building. Like you have, like I think that's when I think back to like the construction of a pipe organ. And like how people were like, this is like the instrument of God or whatever, because it's like you're able to construct something that can make sound that loud and that big that feels like it can summon the presence of God. It's like it's got to be a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And so to be in a room when you feel that or see that, again, another sound that may not be for everyone, but for me, I'm like, it's impressive. And I think
can I add to that?
Sure.
Opening week of Phantom of the Opera.
That's a
Broadway,
great play.
with Sarah Brightman, and back then hanging out with my Italian friends.
Right.
I can just leave that one alone. But he said, "You come in with me, and we're going to go to the opera. We're going to take the wife out, and you're going to look after us. But you're coming with us."
Like the accent.
And I said, "Okay." And so we're sitting front row.
Wow.
And when that pipe organ started. Talking about resonating through your body, your heart muscles could feel it.
Yeah,
you could literally, and that whoever was just holy crap.
Yeah, and that's what I mean is like there's been a couple of moments where, I've been in the presence of something like that where it's just impressive and just so it's hard to comprehend in a way that like how something like that works, and then to really hear someone play and then be able to play it effectively, it can really move you in a special way.
You been moved by anything music wise or what, Mr. Avery? You're awful quiet over there.
Well, like you said, some sounds, like even if you're not like super interested in them and don't like necessarily like them, sometimes they just catch you off guard and you just vibe with it. Like for example, when you talk about the saxophone, I wouldn't necessarily say that I listen to jazz or blues very often, so the saxophone isn't used in the music I usually listen to. However, I did hear a cover of "Hey Ya" by a saxophone one time, and I just listened to it for like an hour straight on like replay, and it was just vibed with me.
It got you,
right.
huh?
Yeah.
It
Just
hooked
out of
you and
nowhere,
got
I heard
you.
it, and I was just like, "This is amazing."
It's obviously resonating at some level, at the subatomic level.
There's a really there's a modern band that I listen to that I've always liked the sound of. They always just do a really great job with the kind of rock music that I like. And they just released a new track that was kind of like that. It hit me in a certain way, and I listened to it probably 4 or 5 times in the same day. But it was because like it mixed these two emotions, where it's like it's rock music. It has that kind of like drive. It pushes you forward. The lyrics may be kind of like a little pessimistic or like a little sad, or I wouldn't say it's sad, but like it's not necessarily we're not talking about the happiest things here. We're kind of talking about some real stuff. But then but it's like knowing stuff about music theory, it's in like a major key, and so it's like kind of it sounds a little happy, and like the way that he's singing it kind of sounds like he's going, hey, he's like being really happy about it. But like we're talking about some pretty hard stuff, and for some reason it kind of made me laugh as a musician, and also like as just a listener of the band, because I was like, this kind of seems like something they would do, and I was listening to it because it was like catchy and it was fun, and I was like, and it was just this weird feeling, and I was like, I don't know. So I get what you're talking about, where it has like these things that just hit you in a certain way, and you're like, man, I just gotta listen to that again. Like,
do you feel like the music today, though, is as a whole?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like it's lifting up the culture, or is it tearing it down?
That's again the hard thing. I think music is so broad and it's so big that's hard to answer. I think popular music, like modern music that gets millions and millions and millions of downloads, probably I wouldn't say it's the most encouraging stuff in the world. For me, this is where I have to be careful, because like with many facets of myself, when we start talking about like coffee things, we start talking about this, is like I can be what's another word for snooty? Like I can be bougie. I got, or like just a little.
There's nothing wrong with being a little bougie.
No, but what's it called whenever like you're being like a little particular.
You're discriminating.
It's hard. There's a word I'm thinking of. I can't think of it. It'll come to me later.
Passive aggressive.
No, it's more. You're right though. Yeah. It's more.
You fit in really well.
Passive aggressive.
Wow.
Mine's.
I wasn't expecting that one.
I love it.
Right.
That's awesome.
Right. It's more so that I can be too uppity, and modern music, I think it's
you have a discriminating taste.
Right. I get but I don't. Discrimination is not the word I'm looking for. Is what I'm saying. It's like there's a word for it.
You're
I can't think of it.
selective.
I don't. No way.
Yeah.
Hold on. Just give me a second.
I'll come up with it, Ian.
I know. Quit trying to guess the word because you're making it harder for me to find it.
Okay.
No,
we're going to have a contest. Top 5 words for Ian here.
Oh God.
Passive aggressive is 2 words, so you use 2 of them.
No,
does it have a hyphen?
It's hyphenated.
It's hyphenated,
I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. The point that I'm making is that I look at it and I'm a little too snooty, I guess is the word I'm gonna look for. I'm like, it's easily producible. It's kind of rinse and repeat. Like there may be like the real work involved is probably like the lyric structure, and even then some of that's kind of just like ramshackled together. And so like there are great pop music artists out there that have some really great recording people that can like really make beautiful sounding music. I'm not saying that's not the case. Don't come for me. But I think I just have a different taste in music from like what the popular music is, and I don't think I search out music like that. That's just like, let me just put on a song and like just to like have a fun day at the beach, or like like I don't listen to that kind of music that just kind of feels like it's nothing, or it feels
you're
like
looking
it's not.
for a specific
I'm looking
type.
for music.
Well,
Right.
one of the things we talk about on the podcast is an experience with something. We talk about an experience with food, and music is kind of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Ian sounds like he's looking when he's going to actually take the time. We're all busy. Mr. Avery works and you're in school.
Right.
You run and you work, and Ian has, a small media company and works,
Right.
and I have 3 jobs and a new wife and things. And so when we take the time to actually sit down and do something, we want to benefit from it. You want to listen to something that you're going to like,
Right.
and it's going to move you. Do you agree with that, Mr. Avery?
I think but I think when it comes to pop music, pop music just stands for popular music, so it
Sure.
covers like a varied range of music, so it's not just very specific like rock or country. And I think one of the reasons that like it's really popular is because it doesn't necessarily have to listen to it because of the lyrics. You kind of just vibe with it sometimes.
It's catchy, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like one of the biggest things about pop music is you'll see, like, especially here in America, like some of the biggest songs could be like in Spanish, like when Despacito came out, or like Bad Bunny's songs. Half the time, they're all in Spanish. Most people can't even speak Spanish, but they can still vibe to it, even though they don't even know what it's talking about.
And you'll see them bopping around to the music.
They have no idea what the song's about. And even if it's an English song, it'll be the same scenario, but you can just vibe to it like in the background or while you're driving. I think that's why it's popular, because you don't need to necessarily like think intuitively about it. And
of course. And I guess that was the point that I was making, was that sometimes it's made simple on purpose. Like you don't want to have, again, a lot of times it's too, it's got too much going on. A lot of times people will be like, I don't understand. And that's fine. Like I said, but that's just the point that I was making was that that's not the kind of music that I search out for. The word I was looking for was pretentious.
Okay.
I can be,
There you
that's what I'm
go.
saying. I can be too pretentious sometimes where I'm like, this isn't to my caliber. And sometimes I have to pull myself back and go, but it's still well-crafted music, and there's people out there that are making the music. And so I have to it's the same thing with country music. The sound of it may not mesh with me, but I know that there's still really talented country musicians out there that and I can respect the art, even though I'm like, it's not really my thing. So
there was a song you're talking about the Latino community, and it's catchy. Do you remember the song Gasolina by Daddy Yankee?
Yes,
I have heard it before.
That was the first one I can remember like that. That was just so catchy. Everybody was singing it. Every station was playing it, and nobody knew what it was saying.
Yeah.
So
like
that was awesome.
when Selena blew up in the 90s, 2000, didn't even know what she was saying, but you could still vibe to it.
Right.
Okay. Wow.
Exactly.
Okay.
Is there a song
Yes.
that a commercial? Is there a song that was played for a commercial that really grabbed you and just stuck with you?
Oh man, I can't remember the name of it right now, but I know exactly
Wow.
the feeling you're talking about. There was an old, it was an old iPod commercial back in the early 2000s that I remember hearing it, and it was just catchy because it was at that point in time where it was just like the silhouette of the person, like a colored background with like a white silhouette, and they were like playing around with the iPod, and it was like this really catchy song. And I remember hearing it and being like, I don't know what that song is, and I figured it out later, but only after many years of looking around.
It was a song. The one that really captured me was by Dirty Vegas.
Whoa, what a name!
Yeah, it was an actual. The video was a guy dancing. He would show up at the corner at the store, and he'd pull out a mat and he'd start dancing. And people in the store would comment that this guy keeps coming to this corner every day to dance, and he's done it for like forever.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, then it backdrops of what kind of led this guy to do this, and it's because I think he left like a girl broke up with him at that corner, and this was his way of trying to get her attention again, to get her back.
Okay.
And this has been like going on for years. So that one has always kind of stood out.
But even the movies and the commercials, they're using that music to elicit a response from you.
Right.
And they want you to remember, because not just vision alone doesn't stir the memory. Smells, sounds, other textures, so to speak, is what's going to bring that memory back. And they want you to remember their product or that moment or something. And so they're going to use that to their advantage. And the commercials do that, and movies do that a lot.
Well, there's a lot of science behind the idea of eliciting.
Well, you remember the movie Titanic when the ship is going down.
Yeah.
And the band is still playing. You heard that song for like 2 weeks in your head.
Right.
Yeah.
After you saw that movie, it just kept playing in your head because they're like, oh, why don't they
And
jump?
invokes sadness.
And
The
it
sad violin
invokes
is
sad-
still used in like pop culture nowadays, just like the sad violin music.
Right. But those things are very intentional and on purpose, and it's just like colors, and it works.
I tell you a song, kind of a song that really, I don't remember it, but it was in the movie Hachi, A Dog's Tale. And me being an animal lover, anytime the dog dies, that's rough. But that song just absolutely every time I hear it, I can't help myself. I'm going to start crying. It's just, it's so sad, but yet it invokes a powerful emotion of love.
Right.
And it's just like,
well,
I can't help myself.
Right.
It just every time it happens.
It's the same thing. And I think I touched on this. I touched on this probably a couple times, but I'll say it again here because it's the music episode. There was a point in time where I did a talk to like a class of like filmmakers and actors and stuff about like how important music is and music selection is in like films and or just in anything. Music and atmosphere is like, I mean, you are creating an atmosphere, you're creating an emotion, you're creating a feeling, you are trying to elicit a response from people and taking that seriously and, finding it to be important. And I always open, or have in the past always opened with the first 5 minutes of Up, the Disney and Pixar film.
that's another one that,
because it's just you can, after you've seen it and probably seen it a couple times, all it takes is for you just to hear the song again and for you to feel that weight of, you know, the burden of this, like, even in 5 minutes you see this lifelong relationship that ends up ending, you know, kind of by just.
Well, again, I mean, it's intentional.
Right,
they
exactly.
know what they're doing.
Well, yeah,
the song is the melody is it's trying to say, okay, there's sadness, there's loss, he went through a dark valley of his life trying to figure things out, and he came out on the other end a very loving human being who it was like a rebirth.
Right. The interesting thing that Disney and Pixar have done very well in the past on almost every one of their films is that they kind of like break the norm, I guess, in some way. And I could be very wrong, so please don't take my word as, you know, gospel in this regard. But traditionally in music, you have major and major kind of sounds happy, whereas minor kind of sounds sad. Whenever you hear the two, they're like methods in which you can play a song, where you can play the same song, but you can play it in a major mode or a minor mode, and like it just kind of has a happier sound and it has a sadder sound or whatever. So generally you would think for like like a song like that, or for like, for instance, Toy Story is a prime example. Toy Story has like a pretty like recognizable theme. Their theme is in major, like it's obviously happy, and it's kind of meant to be that kind of it's supposed to elicit that same sort of like happy feeling, or that same, because again we're talking about, you know, some pretty happy things most of the time. But then there's they have a way in which they can they're so good at what they do. They can play that same song that's in major, but then play it just in a different way, or they can just play it just a little bit differently, or in a little bit slower, a little more intentional, or they play it with a different instrument, and they pair it with the emotion and with the weight of like what you've already established this like happy feeling with, and to pair it with this unfortunate circumstance. And that's I think that's why I use Up as a great example, because it takes what you'd get in like a Disney movie or a Pixar movie, and it condenses it down, because it's the same song, the same melody, the same key, the same mode. We're playing this same happy tune, even in this sad, depressing part. But because of the method in which they're playing it and the weight of the emotion beforehand, the fact that sound is supposed to trigger these happy memories, and the fact that you're looking at all these sad things, you're like, oh gosh, this is so hard to grapple with. And it's a really great example, you know, for just something really quick, and it's like, it's effective. And whereas if you take the music out, you can look at it and feel sad. But then once you put the song in there and you really watch it and hear it in its entirety, you feel sad.
Right.
Well, what's something else that if you took the music out of it, it would change?
Yeah.
What's one of the most recognizable melodies on the planet?
Star Wars.
Well, no. How about the opening to Jaws?
Oh, that's
You're right.
Yeah, that's
okay.
right.
If you take that out, it's not as threatening. It's
Right.
not as scary, but
Right.
they did something very intentional there.
Yeah.
And that has gone through decades
Right.
of multi-use for eliciting some type of fear.
Foreboding, yeah.
Foreboding and fear.
It adds tension. It's that.
And they did, I hate to say it, but they did it with the Imperial March in Star
Oh,
Wars.
yeah.
That's recognizable across many genres and things. So why is music? Why do we think music does that to us? Why?
Oh, there's a number. I mean, this is a much deeper conversation, because the same thing can be said about John Williams in Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
When like the first time like the greenery opens up and you see these, you know, dinosaurs, and it's and it's just this huge sound, and it feels big, and it feels so majestic, and it's like there are rules in music because I guess those rules help guide us towards certain sounds and certain emotions, but also rules are meant to be broken. So, I mean, like, you can do whatever you want, but a lot of times, like, there are sections of rules for those kind of things.
Music is math. There's an equation to it.
Oh, yeah.
And if you want this formula to work, you're going to use this equation. If you want this form, and it's all scientific.
Sine and cosine.
Yes, it's all math.
It's all verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, outro. That's every major song.
Yeah.
If you want to elicit a certain response, follow this.
Yeah, it's very funny how y'all touched on like how it's not just like what you see, but it's also what you hear. When you see clips chopped up and like they change the sounds and it like completely changes it. Like, for example, in the Harry Potter movie, they have when Harry is getting spied on by the Dementors and they're haunting him.
Mm-hmm.
It initially has like this creepy sound, and I saw somewhere someone swapped it with "Let's Get It On," and it just completely changes the mood because like the Dementors like peeking around the corner, and then Harry's like, and you can just like feel like tension now. It's like, wait a second, this is what.
That's a great example. Another one that I had to bust Magnus's bubble on was "Oh Hell No to the No No." Okay, so he's walking around doing all this nasty dancing to this song. And I said, God. Magnus, what are you doing? And he says, I'm dancing. I said, Magnus, don't do that to that song. And he says, why not? That's what this song is. And I said, Magnus, that's a church song. And he goes, no, it's not. I said, yes, that's by Bishop Bullwinkle. That is a church song. That's about going to church and the happenings inside of the church service. And he said, no, it's not. And I said, bet me.
Yeah, well, that song was completely changed like 7 years ago to have a completely different meaning for memes and pop culture.
Sure, but they took that one little clip out. Like you said, they took that one little clip and they turned it into something else. But when I played him the whole song, if you could have seen his face, he was like, oh my God.
Wow.
And I said, but when you do that, but that's also what they do in journalism, and they take a little clip and they turn it into something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, music in the very beginning was primarily used for
communication,
religion, in the worship of, ancient cultures, deities, and it's was not nothing really written down. It was something that was just kind of passed down.
Do you know where music was invented?
Africa.
No, actually, the movie Caveman with Ringo Starr and Barbara Bach.
I held my tongue because I was like, I know something's about
Something's
to happen.
coming. Stoney's fixing to drop one.
There's actually only in this movie, there's only 6 words that you'll understand. But you understand everything that's being said and done in this movie, and music came out in that movie, and it's hilarious. That's something for the aftermath.
Okay. Well,
Caveman, Ringo Starr, Barbara Bach.
Right.
What was that big football player, Lyle Alzado? Yeah, he was in that too.
Played for the Oakland Raiders.
Yes. Yeah.
So, would you consider yourself a musicologist?
I don't know. I mean,
Musicologist.
I don't know if
study of music.
Yeah.
No. I got no degrees, or I have
no training.
No one training. Yes, but like nothing. I don't have any papers.
Like research based type.
Right. I've done a lot of stuff. I have been a. I've probably been a working musician for over a decade, like in some capacity. So like I've got whatever that may give people. You know what I mean? Like if that tells somebody like, oh yeah, that's what it means. But,
yeah, in fact, I think there are a couple. Like I think the guitarist for Queen has a PhD in.
Oh yeah,
I believe in music.
Probably so.
He may even have actually in one of the sciences.
Wow,
if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
music is like especially once you get into like the deeper.
Well, then there's ethnomusicology.
I don't know what
that is. It's a study of music in its social and cultural context.
Oh, that makes sense.
Examines music as a social process in order to understand not only what music is, but what it means to its practitioners and audiences. It's a highly interdisciplinary field which draws upon other fields of study such as anthropology, folklore, dance, cultural studies, gender studies, and other social sciences.
Oh, wow.
So it draws upon all that to kind of, why do we do this? What's the whole point? Why does it make you feel a certain way?
Because music does.
Yeah.
Music is a very big experience for a lot of people, and all you have to do is look at them while they're driving home, and they're sitting at the red light, bouncing their heads around, and people are just, it's an escape. It's like a movie.
Right.
It's an escape for a few minutes, or a music video where you combine both. And people just want to get away for a minute, and music allows them to go somewhere. It used to be reading. Now it's music, movies. It's just an escape for a few minutes.
Do you want my really deep philosophical take?
Yes.
My really far out there.
Hey, look, because we're going to probably go a little bit further down a rabbit hole with this episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's aliens. No kidding.
Always.
No, right. Is it?
And where's X-Man saying? Did you have this epiphany when you were having sex with aliens?
No. The music. This is where I hesitate to go down this rabbit hole, because this is where I don't have any scientific research. I don't have any degrees in this. I am not qualified in any way. And with all that being said, music is vibrations and movement of airwaves and movement of molecules and atoms and all that kind of stuff. That's what it is. And I feel like, I'm pretty sure fundamentally on like a subatomic, very, very small level, that's all we are, is all just vibrations and waves and sound, and that's what makes up everything.
Yeah, once you break it down enough. Yeah.
That's why whenever that's what everyone, that's what I learned in music as well. Whenever there's a certain frequency, everything has like a sympathetic frequency. Everything vibrates at like a certain frequency, because everything is vibrating all the time. And if you really want to get like super like, whoa, dude, like that is like, if at the end of the day, if we're all just made up of sound, or we're all just made up of like the concept of what sound is, then it kind of, I guess it would make sense in some way that it would kind of, I guess,
I think
make us feel a certain way that it's,
I think of a movie and a movie and literature where the idea of song plays a critical role in the story.
Yeah.
One in the movie was what was it with Keanu Reeves and where they were the musicians.
Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted. Bill and Ted, and eventually eventually their music like completely
world hunger,
transformed the world.
Right. Yeah, transformed the world.
But the idea that somehow music is a healer and fixes things played in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Also in literature, in the beginning of the Lord of the Rings with the Silmarillion.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The El Iluvatar, the creator, sings into.
Oh man, we're getting into some real heavy stuff here, because that's good. You got to be careful, because same thing with the Aftermath. We have rules. We don't need to watch Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, because those are specific pillars that are.
I just remember in high school when I read those novels and all that, and I just doing research for this, I went, that was how in that world, that's how that reality came into being. The creator sang into existence.
Right.
Well, there's
everything.
a huge belief system in place already for frequencies. The world is known to operate on certain frequencies. Plants thrive on certain frequencies. That's why if you play certain music for plants, they'll actually grow toward the music. But there's also, I think it's, 934 megahertz is the God frequency. Then 800 and something is a healing frequency, that if you play certain music in these frequencies, you can meditate easier, you can calm down easier, your body heals faster. And I've known that over the course of my life, with some of the things, the traumas that I've had in my body. I was shot once, and I had an old man, probably put 200 and something acupuncture needles in my body, but there was music playing in the background too that he had that helped heal my body faster than it would have healed under a normal circumstance. Having my brain surgery. 2 of y'all know this, and I think Ian does too also. I was expected to be out 12 weeks. I was back at work in 30 days. It was part-time, but it was due to the fact of the type of music. I listened to specific music in certain megahertz for not falling into a depression, for healing, for motivation, for positivity in my body, finding confidence in myself. I believe in those frequencies, and I think that, music plays a huge role in that because that's what it is. It's a big math problem, and it has certain frequencies behind it also. And that's something you're talking about right there, is finding that frequency that fits you.
There's something that's like very unique to pop music again, and like the emotion that it brings is to call like another reason pop music is popular is because even like with the songs about it doesn't even matter after the time. Like, for example, my favorite singer is Adele, but I haven't been in, I guess you'd say, the corresponding emotion to listen to her in like probably 5 years, because most of her songs are like breakup type songs. But it doesn't even really matter that much because I just listen to them, like you said, they're catchy, and you could just go along with it. You'll even sing along to it, even though, like you said, you're not even going through that corresponding emotion. And it's funny when you sit back and think about it. It's just very unique.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point.
Have you guys ever been in like in a big like music venue, like a stadium or something like that, or in like a or have you ever felt that like emotion, like that strong, that emotion, like that whether it be bringing you to tears or awe or
a number of times.
Mm-hmm.
A number of times. The first week of Phantom of the Opera, when that pipe organ, I literally froze.
Right.
I could feel my insides vibrate.
Right.
And it elicited a huge response out of me that I was not prepared for.
Right.
Yeah, like my first concert that I ever went to was actually in 2016 when Guns N' Roses had the concert back. And you were talking about November Rain. When they played that song, like I was like, I don't know, I think I was like 12, 13.
Yeah.
And when they played that song, and like the first time I've been to a concert, and this was in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, and yeah, you could just feel it whenever they start playing it, and like the whole emotion starts playing. Everybody does the classic like phone waving your flashlight type thing, and you can really feel the emotion.
Used to be lighters.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
There was, I think I potentially have shared this story again, but I feel like it's appropriate here. There was down in New Orleans, there's this really great theater, and it has these huge, like, vaulted theater seating, and the
Is it
ceilings
Sanger?
It's the Sanger.
Oh,
it's a
I
beautiful
love the
place.
Sanger.
And
my
it
goodness.
has this like the decoration around it makes you feel like you're like outside at night. And I got to see Yanni, who is like a classical composer, and I have loved his music, just watching it like on YouTube for a long time. And I got the ability to go down there and see him. And I had this like prime seat down at the bottom, right in the middle. And it was, this is another story that I tell, like when in regards to atmosphere and like setting the tone before music in a way. He did some like pretty big, opening songs or whatever. And then we're getting to that point where like the tone kind of shifts and we're going down a little bit. And obviously like Yanni has this like kind of lower warm voice. And of course, obviously he has like a really great technician team that can make all of his stuff sound amazing. And he has this huge grand piano, and he's sitting there and he swings his microphone and he just like talks in this like low, just like warm feeling to just kind of like just kind of soothe you to listen to him talk for a second, because he had these like big like bands and they're doing like these crazy fun things, and it's like it's the opening acts. It's like the things where like it gets your attention and gets you excited, and you're like, oh my gosh, like how spectacular that is. And now we're getting to that point where we're gonna bring it down for a second. Let's go ahead and bring it in, and then all the lights get turned down, and there's a light on his piano and him, and he tells this beautiful story about his mother and how she was the person that throughout his entire life encouraged him to become a musician and to just keep on doing what he's doing. And it's just this lovely story. And then he was like, and then of course she passed away. And then out of all that grief and emotion, I wrote this song for her. And then of course he just moves his microphone away. And then he just plays, like he hits one note on the piano, and I swear in this room that just feels massive and makes you feel like you're outside. And to hear him talk about this wonderful story and to kind of get you involved and to prepare your emotions for what's about to happen. And then for him to just hit that one note, I just felt like it was just like you opened the floodgates, for me at least, because I was like, man, I could just feel it well up. And then, of course, he played that entire song, and I've never had a moment like that before, because obviously this was this beautiful grand piano. The sound was amazing. It echoed in this wonderful stadium. It was very beautiful, and it was just this amazing moment that I could have never dreamed of. And I was like, I sat there, I just remember like being worked up to tears in that moment, going like, man, this is some beautiful stuff. And at that moment, I was like, this is the power of music in a way.
It was resonating.
Oh, yeah.
At your frequency that you're giving off.
But even, like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it wasn't even because, like, I could empathize on any of the stuff he was talking about. But it was just the fact of, like...
He was able to connect with you.
He was able to connect.
Was able to bring it right to you.
He was talking to a crowd of probably upwards of 500 people.
You felt like he was talking to you.
But at that moment, I was like, this guy is... This song was for his mom, and this song means so much to him, and I felt that, and I was like, man,
I haven't heard Yanni in a long time.
We got two.
Yeah.
What's a concert you've been to that you liked?
The last concert I went, it's been a long time. I think the last concert I went to was Van Halen.
Whoa. Wow. There you go.
Man.
Van Halen. I mean, I used to see all those.
Oh, yeah.
Those kind of groups. But it's been a long time. I really don't go to large venue, music venue type events anymore.
Right. I used to do that kind of work a lot. So I've been, I don't say behind stage, but I've been at least side stage for like a lot of those really nice big shows.
You mentioned Yanni. That kind of reminds me of like, I think that falls in the same, like Enya.
Yeah.
Produces the same kind of music. Another is Enigma.
Yeah.
I love Enigma. Some of my favorite songs, like that little rendition they have with the Gregorian chant in there.
Right.
That's right up my alley.
Right. And that's what I'm talking about as well. It's like there's music like that.
One of the greatest concerts I ever went to.
Oh,
Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah.
Who?
Sammy Davis Jr.
Sammy Davis Jr. Really?
Who?
Right.
Okay.
What genre is it?
It's about right.
You'll be listening to that at work tomorrow.
I'm sick.
About right.
I'll be sick.
Mm-hmm. Nope. Just the old Rat Pack.
Yep.
Just the.
That's amazing.
It was just
music was different then.
Very different then. Music was uplifting. You weren't ugly.
Well,
you weren't killing cops. You weren't raping women.
I think that
that
like
that's refers to one type of music, really.
I think that there's a lot of popular music that I think matches that genre of like, you're right, probably not the most encouraging stuff in the world, but like I don't think that just because it's not the pop culture doesn't mean that music doesn't exist anymore.
Sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't.
Well, if you notice, there's some songs coming out that are feeling that era back again. I'm not real familiar with it, but when you turn on the radio, there's some artists that are dipping back into that 40s and 50s.
Silk Sonic
Big band era.
not necessarily a big band, but some of those old genres back there, and they're dipping into that feel.
Yeah, they pull a lot of sound bites from it, and they'll like almost like a cover sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Bruno Mars has a group.
I like Bruno Mars.
He has a group called Silk Sonic that has a very, very heavy like 70s, 80s influence. Or I think it's more 70s, kind of like that funky kind of vibe. And it feels very much like of a different time. But he's making music right now. It's
something unique about concerts, again, is like the difference between making like a good concert and a bad concert is usually like the artist's like engagement with the audience. Like I would, although I do listen to rap quite a lot, I would probably never go to a rap concert, probably for two reasons. First off, safety wise, I don't want to go. But the second reason is because they usually, like, I've seen rap concerts and I've been to one before, and they really just kind of just go in there, sing their few songs, and go. Half the time they're late. But like, for example, I have seen an Adele concert on online before, and a lot of like country singers actually engage with the audience and like tell you the backstory behind their songs. And like you said, it really makes you like feel the song even more, especially if you didn't know it before and you hear it, and then you just really pay attention, and it really makes you feel different.
I remember one time I had a friend, and she said, "Look, let's go to a concert. My uncle's coming into town, David Allen Coe." And I said, "Okay, yeah, sure, why not? I love that old outlaw country stuff. I love that." And so we got some pretty good seats in the standing in the front, and he comes out and he sings two songs. One of his entourage or I don't know, what do you call the guys doing the work? The
sound
tech or somebody comes running up to him, whispers in his ear. Him and four other people run off the stage as fast as possible. And coming from the other side, there was 9 police officers chasing them off the stage, and they disappeared. Now, everybody paid for this concert. And there was such a loud roar and yelling and screaming and cheering, "Run, run, run." And because he was one of the outlaws. Yeah. And we don't know if he ever got him or not, but I doubt it. But he was gone, and nobody cared. He only sang 2 songs.
There was
great.
There was one group that I went to a concert for the headliner and one of the opening acts. Never heard of them, but he had one of those songs that was like a call and response kind of thing, where like he was going to say something, we're all going to respond. And there was at one point in the song, he jumps off the stage and is in the crowd with us, and he's just like dancing and jamming out with this like wired microphone ran to the stage. And of course, we're all like having a great time with the lead singer of the band, who is just singing his own song along with us. And I remember that, and I got to like shake his hand afterwards, and was like, that was one of the most fun shows I've been to in a while. And he's like, that's exactly what I want people to leave with. I want people to leave not only like kind of interested in our music, but also being like, I had a lot of fun tonight. And I was like, well, trust me, like that was definitely. And I still love that group till today, even though like their genre has definitely like has kind of gone even off the rails from what it like originally started with. I'm still in love with the band because they're good people from what I've seen.
So does anybody have a favorite song? What's your favorite song, Mr. Avery?
Oh, y'all need to come back to me. I need to think about that for a second.
Jason, you got a favorite song?
I have no idea. There's a lot. There's a lot of songs that I like. I can't say I actually have a favorite song.
What about you, Ian?
I have favorite bands. I don't have favorite songs.
I have albums. One favorite song. Beer is good. People are crazy.
People are crazy.
That's right. Love that song. I could listen to that song over and over and over and over. I even had it from a ringtone for a long time. If you called me on my phone and it didn't ring, it played that song. And then, of course, Verizon took the sound things out of there. I was
interesting.
Mad.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with Ian on this one. It's you can ask my favorite band of like a genre is, but I can't give you a favorite song in general. It's not.
Well, that's the only one song I'll say is my favorite. I love many groups. I love many genres of music, but that's my song. Yeah. I love that song because beer is good and people are crazy.
I mean,
especially when you combine them together.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, right. For me, during some very forming moments of my life, Paramore has been a very big band that I've learned so much from, and I've been with every step of the way, and I got to meet them, and it was just they've been a big group that, again, I have numerous albums of theirs that I could listen to from start to finish. And be
why
like,
you didn't ask him who? Why didn't you say who?
I mean,
I see how it is. Yeah, Sammy Davis, you're like, who?
Well, I figured he was an old guy kind of person. This sounded more interesting.
So you know who Paramore is?
No.
Oh, okay.
But it sounds more interesting.
I actually, since you've mentioned them, I have listened to a couple of the things. They're actually kind of a good. I like them.
Yeah. It's an interesting band, and like I said, for me, like they started like coming into popularity in that like early 2000s, where like I was in my teenage years. I was like that prime age of like impressionability in music, and was just like it was that along with other like rock bands at that time, like
Green Day.
Well, yeah, Green Day. But I mean, like even from like late '90s stuff, like Foo Fighters and Nirvana, like even like some of that kind of stuff. Where it's like even in that genre, like I listened to all exactly. So there's a whole lot of stuff.
Sounds like Jason's really the only true metalhead here, right?
I mean, I love metal personally.
Well, I mean, it's just the kind of music that I like. I mean, but I like the British New Wave. I mean, I love the Duran Durans and the Culture Club and all that when it, and all that came out in the early after the death of disco.
That's right. We need to talk about that.
Yeah, Pearl Jam's another one.
Pearl Jam was was kind of that Nirvana. That was kind of following. Right. That followed the Alice Coopers and Motley Crue and Van Halen and Quiet Riot and all that. There was a different sound.
Right. Well, again, I was born.
I
was born in the mid '90s, so obviously that.
So you weren't even. Yeah.
Like I said, my dad had listened to it. Like my dad had been around, and obviously he listened to all of it. But he was also he wasn't. I think too scared of the new stuff either. So I think I have kind of the best of both worlds, but I think I have that nostalgic feeling because I grew up on the.
Yeah, as I said, in the older I have gotten, I have found myself more liking the Enigma type music, the classical music. I just find it more peaceful.
Yeah,
and
interesting.
So when you're young, you don't mind a little bouncing around and stuff, but when you start getting old, you kind of need a little peace, and you need the music to bring you peace.
I like. As a matter of fact, lately I've been, going on YouTube and pulling up sleep sounds and playing that.
Ambient noises.
Now, if you do that, do your sleep sounds, but check into the frequency sleep sounds, and you can find some frequencies that when you listen to when you're sleeping, some of them though you need to have headphones on. Because there's something about the way the music resonates in your ear, and we keep using that word resonate.
Resonates.
But sometimes you need to have earphones on or plugs in because it does something.
Well, it also like blocks off all the noise and everything else, especially if you have some good ones.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm just pulling it up and have whatever frequency and these sounds and I found it's helped.
Yeah, one of the coolest things about having, like, if you have relatively expensive headphones, but nowadays it's much more popular to have like 3D audio headphones. Like when a musician actually takes advantage of using like difference between mono and stereo, so you can hear it like across it. And unless you have like surround sound, you just have like basic speakers playing it, you won't necessarily hear that. But then when you have the headphones, you can really feel it, resonate.
Yeah. I have surround sound headphones at the house, and when I was gaming, you can actually hear somebody running from the front to the back. But
a lot of games do that nowadays.
Some artists do take advantage of that, and it's really unique to listen to that. I like that.
I agree.
That means somebody's put in a little bit extra effort.
Yes, it does.
So can music control us?
Oh,
absolutely.
Gosh. I don't want to say control's kind of a. You mean?
Well, the CIA experimented with psychedelic drugs, sleep deprivation, and music and videos in brainwashing people. And because they learned early on that not only the visual aspect of it, but they could pull out certain emotions through the music too, tempered with psychedelic drugs and sleep deprivation.
Yeah, when I was kind of researching this topic, as I said, I kind of went down a rabbit hole on some of this stuff, but Ian, Avery, y'all might know more about this. I read there was a big controversy about the transition from 432 hertz to 444. 440 hertz, which is now the standard.
Right.
And there's all kind of conspiracy theories associated with that. Do y'all have any?
I've heard that, but I don't know much about it.
So if I'm, this is where we start to get into some of the. This is where you start testing me. So for those of you out at home, I'm pretty sure that, I think it's A.
It is.
Okay, yeah. So it's A. So like the suggested is 432. Tune music can decrease heart rate more than 440 can. It's like the whole like the discussion of it all. I think that 440 is the true A, but 432 is what we tune like guitars to, and like music instruments and orchestras, I think, tune it to that, because yes, music is numbers, but also like it's kind of like time. We try to constrain time to like a calendar, but time is just a little weird, and so we have to have a leap year to like accommodate for like the bits of time, you know what I mean? Right. And the same kind of thing happens with music, is you have frequencies, and you can like divide them and increase them in a way, and it does work like math. But sometimes like you can, on paper and in like a computer, you can have A440, but sometimes whenever you tune a guitar to A440, once you start making those physical strings like on the upper register, like at least this is again my working knowledge of it, instruments and like in the physical world, A440 doesn't really like it doesn't sound very good. Whenever you tune a whole instrument to it, you can play it and it just doesn't feel right because it feels like it's out of tune.
Would some instruments be able to handle that frequency better than other instruments, maybe?
Probably digital ones, like again, ones that can produce like true tones of it.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, because you're at least, again, like I said, I could be very wrong and I could be misspeaking, but a lot of times, even though the A440 is correct, once you start like getting into other keys higher up in the register or lower down, is when like they start to become out of tune, where it's like, oh, this is supposed to be like a lower G, but it's actually like, yes, it's supposed to be, but it doesn't sound that way. It's actually off or whatever. So
yeah, I said I was going through, and I said I was going back to like Pythagoras on some of the stuff with the 432 actually came from Pythagoras. He's the one who created that.
Yeah, and whenever you hear the two next to each other, you hear 432 and 440. They are. It is very like fractions.
The
of
pitch is not. Yeah, it's a little different.
It's just ever so slightly different, but it's that same thing of like if you were to take a plane and fly straight, and they're not allowed to correct left or right. The slightest turns in the beginning of the trip is going to make them deviate, miles and miles apart. Like again, so just if you have to just fly straight, and at the beginning of the trip you move like an inch or two this way, it's going to make you go, I forgot what that's called, but like the exponential growth, the trajectory, whatever. It's the same sort of thing. It's like you can. It may sound like you're just little bits apart, but the second you start like dividing that gap gets bigger. And
they said the 432 is actually reverberates with the earth.
Right.
It's a more natural sound. The universe hums along at that frequency.
And I think it also it makes sense. I think also for the technology again. Back in the day,
as I said, there's a lot of information, on this. As I said, this stuff goes on and on and on.
Oh yeah,
it's they say it vibrates with pi or vi or whatever it's called, which is the golden ratio. Right. So it has to be pi. And it said the ratio is found in geometrical shapes in nature and even our DNA.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
and that's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm saying. So the idea of vibrations actually being used for healing, I do believe is grounded in real science. We just really haven't been able to get to that level of kind of that
you're
attunement.
A runner. So after you run, your marathon, do you listen to some of these frequencies in your rest cycle?
Sometimes.
Have you found them to help or not?
Not a lot, and maybe I need to do that more. Normally, I just cool down. Normally, I have
because when I first started getting into music, I had an egg, not like the big green egg barbecue pit, but I had an egg, and it had various speakers in it, and it was pitched as a healing type thing. When you listen to certain frequencies, you got into this egg, and it pushed the music and the frequencies and the sounds down on you all around you.
Yeah.
And I believe it had some little bit of merit, maybe not as much as they were pushing. I wonder if it would help when you're finished your marathon.
That's a great idea. I may try that. I may try to put one of the the frequencies of like healing and restoration on to see how that makes me feel.
One of the crazy things is you can, with a good enough sound system, you can hear 30 hertz, but you can't. Once you start dipping below that, it gets hard to hear, and there are you have to have some pretty big speakers to produce 20 hertz, and 20 hertz is that level of rumbling that I've only got a chance to feel it once, where I couldn't hear it, but I felt the sound, and it made my hair stand up, and I felt uneasy. And supposedly, like if you listen to 20 hertz for too long,
I was about to say that 20 hertz like the limit of where you can't hear anymore for humans.
Once you go down below that, you can't really hear anymore. But man, I tell you, I couldn't hear because I was in it was a huge sound system. And it was for like a electronic DJ or whatever, and so it was producing some really low frequencies. And whenever it went down to 20, and we just rested there for a second, I was like, I don't feel good. I feel really bad, and it made me feel it gave me that fight or flight sensation of I feel uncomfortable. So.
Well, we're going to need you after your next marathon to give that a shot and report back to us on the podcast.
I'm
let
curious.
us know.
I mean, that's a good idea. I may try to do that just to see if there is a difference.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But but no, the that 430, 432, and 440 goes back to Rockefeller.
Yeah, and
they indicated they wanted concerts to sound the same no matter where you were in the world. So whether you're in Canada or Japan or whatever,
right,
everything would sound uniform. But I also believe there was probably some nefarious ideas, because 440 it's the notes are a little bit more harsh, and there was some degree of mind control. Population control, because all you needed to do was affect maybe about 8% of the population, and they feel like that was enough to get things kind of go. I kind of wonder now about all the social upheaval we're having in our world today. Is there something going on with?
Well, one of the weapons the military uses is a frequency machine, and they send this sound frequency down the range, and it'll mess you up.
Yeah,
it'll mess you up. But we also did an episode on Edgar Casey, and he predicted that future healing would be done through frequency and music.
That's right. Yep.
So, and he saw these things coming. We may not be there yet, but maybe he saw something coming in the future or near future that will be popping out, and that'd be interesting to see.
I'd be very curious where the direction goes with. The more I read about this stuff, the more I'm a firm believer that there has been attempts to use this to control, to affect, I should say not necessarily control, to affect the population.
Yeah.
To move the population in certain directions.
I guess that's
with certain things.
Right. I guess that's whenever you had said can music control us? And I think that whenever you say it, the first thing that came to mind is that cartoony, you listen to a song and all of a sudden I'm oh no, I'm mind controlled. But I think more so when you frame it in that way, I think I understand more about what you're talking about. And I think that's probably truer in that regard. it's the same discussion when you start talking about aliens. Like everyone keeps talking about how they're not just going to release it all at once. They're going to like trickle out stuff and get the population like acclimated to it, and all of a sudden they're going to be like, they've always been around. Everyone's like, oh, it makes sense, and you know what I mean?
Yep.
So it could be something in that ballpark, because I do think that music can make you
think
feel
about this.
something.
We've talked about, like you just said,
Right.
we feel a certain way when music comes out. It can calm you down. It can lower your blood pressure. It can do things. But then take it to the next step. We also talked about, well, if you listen to AC/DC driving, don't the police officers know that you got an extra 15?
No.
Yeah.
But think
There's
about
some aggression there.
There's some aggression. What about certain musics and mosh pits and things like that? These certain frequencies can bring out agitation and anger and things like that. And what if they're using that?
I think there's some science behind that.
I think
actually.
so too. Absolutely.
I was having like a little bit of an argument with someone, and it was happening while we were like listening to like this rock music, and
You got agitated.
No.
Oh,
No, what I'm saying is like that we were listening to it, and we were already kind of agitated, and then as it progressed, I could tell that I was getting more agitated, and the music that was like kind of like ramping us up wasn't helping. And so when I cut it off, all of a sudden like the tension kind of diffused, and I was like, let's just talk it out for a second. And because I was able to perceive that, but I wonder about people that weren't able to
perceive that.
Right.
Maybe,
And
maybe
other feelings,
Just for the record, listeners, no one here is going to commit suicide in the near future. If the government's listening and we've gone to one of their secrets there, none of us are committing suicide. So
I haven't talked about the real secrets.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I read this.
Oh, sound man.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody really wants to kind of dive into this, I read this article by Dr. Leonard G. Horowitz. It was called "Musical Cult Control: The Rockefeller Foundation's War on Consciousness Through the Imposition of the A = 440 Hertz Standard Tuning." It is a extensive article that goes into the Rockefeller Foundation actual publications of what they did. And it is filled with the use of different frequencies to get the population to do certain things. That is probably still going on to this day, because all the broadcasting equipment is probably been built by military applications. They've always been testing things on the population for years.
Wow.
So it's a pretty good article, but there's a lot to it.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are similar to that, like with color, like advertisers when they use like different colors, like red, makes you hungry or mad, and blue does the opposite, it's very unique when you like start learning about that, and then you start like being conscious about it, and you see how many things, like how obvious it is. Like, well, there's no way that I couldn't see this before.
I think it's interesting you say that, but isn't color too? Now I'm colorblind, but isn't color too a light frequency?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So again, we fall back to a certain frequency. What could that be something there? If you're looking at,
I think the human body resonates about 6 to 8 hertz.
Okay, so but if we're also looking at light frequency, sound frequency, and the Earth and universe frequency,
they're all, believe it or not, I believe the human body is 6 to 8. I believe the Earth is between 6 and 8, and probably the universe is, if I recall, we're all very similar. I don't think that's by accident. I think that's by design.
By design, I agree.
Yeah.
Wow.
Same.
So we were going to talk about light and fluffy music today, and boy, we have gone down a pretty good rabbit hole today.
Well, like I said, once you start dipping into like we're all made of sound, man, and it's all part of who we are, and it's like, okay, yeah, we start talking about some pretty big stuff here, and again, you start tiptoeing into military.
If we're getting close to the end of our broadcast, I just want to read this, just like I read a little something in the beginning.
Okay.
Alpha waves in the human brain are between 6 and 8 hertz. The wave frequency of the human cavity resonates between 6 and 8 hertz. All biological systems operate in the same frequency range. The human brain's alpha waves function in this range, and the electrical resonance of the earth is between 6 and 8 hertz. Thus, our entire biological system, the brain, and the earth itself work on the same frequencies. If we can control that resonant system electronically, we can directly control the entire mental system of humankind. Nikola Tesla.
Oh, wow.
That's very
wow,
interesting.
dude.
Wow.
That's crazy.
It's kind of funny how all these
What a
little
mic
things
drop.
are starting to. We didn't do that intentionally, but Edgar Casey,
There's
Tesla,
a-
all of these people are
Dots,
just.
yeah.
It's the
Wow.
greater like a retrospect cinematic universe. It's like it all comes back to Nikola Tesla.
Retrospect cinematic universe.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we definitely have gone significantly over time today, but if anybody out there is wanting to comment on any of this stuff or wants to, reach out to us about any podcast topic suggestions or whatever else, we have a Facebook page /Retrospect Pod, where you can reach out to us that way, or you can just type in Retrospect Pod and you should be able to find most of the stuff that we're on, or just Retrospect on any of the major podcasting platforms. But anyways, until next week, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. God bless.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for the invite.
You're the best. Peace.